Hey guys, Alan Watson here at Golf Plus. Today we're in our Panama City Beach location and we're talking about wedge gapping. So I just recently got a new set of clubs from Callaway. I've got the new Apex Pro irons and I've also got some new Jaws wedges from Callaway. And so because I've got new sticks in the bag, I need to make sure that my gaps are proper so that when I get out to the golf course, I don't have some uneven jumps between some of my wedges, or I also would like to know my distances roughly so I know what to do so I don't come up short of the green or fly it over the green, whatever. And for you, it may be the case that you've been playing your clubs for years and you've just noticed that maybe it doesn't seem like you have the right setup or the right gaps, or maybe you've got one club that works exactly like you want it to every time, but maybe some of the other clubs in your set don't seem to do that. So coming in and having a wedge gapping or even a full set gapping session with one of my fitters here at Golf Plus is really going to help you. So I'm going to demonstrate that today and show you how this works. So first step is to check all the lofts and then hit them. We're going to skip the checking of the lofts first, and we're going to go straight to hitting them, see what they look like, then we'll go check them and see why that is what it is. So that's what we're going to do real quick. Even if your swings aren't perfectly consistent, that's okay because the computer can throw out the bad swings, keep all the good ones, and we'll still get our data and use our comparison that way. So that was our pitching wedge. Now we're going to go to our gap wedge. The computer kind of intuitively knows which swings weren't like the others, and it can throw those out for you unless you want to keep those. The other thing we're going to look for in a gapping session is once we move the clubs over to the Loft lie machine to see why the gaps are what they were, we're also going to check the lie angle. So we might have one club that's flying a little too much to the left or the right compared to the rest of them, and it's probably a lie angle issue. So we're going to get to see that while we're doing this. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone, and it's just good to have that information and get the clubs set up. All right, we're on to the lob wedge. Now I already know that even though this lob wedge says it's 58 degrees, I bent this club to 59 myself. So this gap could be a little bit off. I was used to using a 60 degree, that's what I've always used. So I was kind of thinking 58 was probably a little too strong for me. So we went to 59, played pretty good outdoors last time I was outside. So we're going to see what the numbers look like here. Nice. All right, so this is the moment of truth when we see what our gaps look like. So this is sort of the clusters of the shots. It's not sort of, it is the clusters. And then you'll see my averages. I've got 93 average for the lob wedge, 102 for the sand wedge, 115 for the gap wedge, and 136 for the pitching wedge. Now, normally I'd have to do my own math, but because of this incredible machine, it's showing me exactly what my gap is. 9, 12, and 21. So clearly this is a little too big of a gap and this is too small of a gap. So at 59 degrees where I think that wedge is, we're probably going to have to back it up to 60 to create an even bigger gap. We might even need to move the sand wedge forward a little bit, but I don't really want to do that. And the gap wedge for sure, I love hitting it right around 114, 115, so I kind of don't want to mess with that, but the pitching wedge is a little strong. Now, like I said, this is a new set of clubs, and this happens a lot of times when people get new sets, is the lofts of the clubs are not what they're used to. Unless you're getting a set with the exact same specifications as your previous set, or if you've changed shafts maybe, then of course your distances are going to be different. So All important. We got to go check that out. So let's go get on the Loft and Lie machine, see what our numbers are, and see what has caused this to happen. Because this isn't bad, but it's not perfect. So we want to get it a little closer to perfect. All right, so we've done our initial hits and we've checked all our gaps, and now it's time to see what's causing the numbers that we've seen. We've got the pitching wedge here, and this is 46 degrees, and the lie is 61.75. This is the sand wedge, and this is 62.5 and 54.25, which is what we checked earlier, so we kind of already knew that. This is the gap wedge, so it should be around 50. That's what it's stamped from the factory, but things don't always come from the factory like they should be, and sometimes we request that they bend them different, and sometimes that happens, and sometimes that doesn't. 49.75, 61.75. And then the last club is the Lob Wedge. This is the one that I'm pretty sure I'd already bent, like I mentioned, from 58 to 59, so we shall see if that holds up. Yep, 58.75, so that's as close as we're usually going to get. Now it looks like the lie angle's not been adjusted on this one. This was the last one to show up, so it looks like I haven't fixed it yet. So if we look at our gaps, we've got 3.75 difference, and then here we've got 4.5 difference, and then here we've got 4.5 difference. So that definitely doesn't help explain why the gap difference was so big between our pitching wedge and our gap wedge. It's possible that I just really hit those extra flush. It could be that the bounce of the club coming up off the fake turf in here caused that to pop a little bit. Not 100% sure, but we definitely need to make a little bit of an adjustment. So first thing we'll do is weaken the pitching wedge just a little bit to bring that gap down. And then we're also going to weaken the Lob wedge to open up that gap a little bit. We're going to leave the gap wedge and the sand wedge alone. And then the rest of it's just going to be retesting and then also checking them out outdoors, for instance. So here's the pitching wedge. This is the fun part. People always say, wait a minute, how do you adjust loft and lie? Well, the answer is we lock it into a steel cage and then we put a big heavy steel bar on it. So I want to leave the lie angle alone, but I want to adjust the loft 1 degree. So I'm going to get myself perfectly in line with the angle of the shaft so that I don't adjust the lie, which is the up and down portion of it. And what I want to adjust is the loft, which is the face angle. So I'm perfectly in line. I'm going to pull back just a little bit. This is a forged golf club, which means it's a little bit softer because of its manufacturing process than a cast golf club. Doesn't take too much effort, and I didn't pull hard enough and I only barely moved it. I only moved it 0.25. So we'll try again. Felt like I moved it, but I guess I didn't. All right, definitely gave it a little more effort that time. All right, we got it to 47. We accidentally brought the lie angle up just a little bit, so we'll go back in and fix that. That happens quite frequently, which is why you have to check both. All right, perfect. We're 47 and 61.75. Now we're going to take this lob wedge, we're going to drop it all the way back down to 60, which means I'm going to give up a little bit of distance, but for my game and for the way I like to hit shots, it seems like I'm always finding myself kind of in between anyway. So having a little bit weaker golf club, that's going to be okay with me. And I also need to get the lie angle fixed because most of my clubs are about 2 degrees flat and this one's not. So we need to get that sorted as well. All right, so we got one bend. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be flat enough, so I'm going to go ahead and do 2 bends at once and then check it. Let's see what that did. 60.75 and 63. So I actually went too far on my loft bend and not far enough on my lie bend. So loft I've got to give back. All right, so that's 59.75. So we've added a full degree. And then our lie angle's down to 62.75. So we've come down 1.25. We can flatten that out a little bit more. Don't want to take too much off of it. Don't want to dig the heel of the golf club in when I swing. But there we go. The only other thing we had to do was the sand wedge was just a little bit upright. The loft I didn't mind at all, but the lie angle was definitely too upright. So we're going to give that one little quick bend, and then we're going to go back and recheck our gaps again. Yeah, little bit too upright for sure. Perfect. Okay, so let's go back over, hit them again, see what we've got. All right, so I just went ahead and hit the lob wedge and definitely felt a lot better with the adjustment that we made. The distance is a little bit weaker, which is fine. We wanted that. And the lie angle adjustment, to be honest with you, feels better. So we've only got one more, that's the pitching wedge. We've tried all the other wedges, and in just a minute we'll have our numbers and we'll see how they compare to the numbers we had the first time around. So that took about 5 yards off the pitching wedge, and that's about what we were looking for to try to kind of soften that gap up, because the gap was 21 yards, which is a little too much. I'd rather it be 12 to 15, maybe 17 at the most. Definitely coming in. Now I could obviously swing harder and I could massage the numbers by just absolutely going after it, but that's not the point. The point is to swing your whatever you are going to have in terms of your most normal swing. All right, so our numbers the first time around were a 9, 12, and 21 yard gap. Now we've managed to soften up this gap to 14, which is what I wanted, 14 or 15, and this one stayed about the same at 11. But we actually opened up an even bigger gap between the sand wedge and the lob wedge because we weakened the lob wedge. And the more you weaken a wedge, especially a high lofted club like a wedge versus, like, let's say a 5-iron or a 6-iron, that 1 degree can really make a much bigger difference. So we're probably going to have to bring that back about half a degree or so, maybe even a full degree. Because whereas with a longer club that might have only made a 1 or 2 yard difference, because of the wedge, the ball's rolling up the face, it's spinning a lot. And also these are brand new wedges, so they're going to spin a ton. We just didn't get the ball to go as far. And again, I probably could have just swung a little harder and closed that gap, but we're going to want to get that gap to about 14. If we do that and weaken the sand wedge a hair, we'll have a nice 14, 14, 14. We'll have perfect gaps. So that's what we're going for, and that's what we'll try to do. So we'll go back to the loft and lie machine, do another little tweak, check another session, but we'll get it there, and then that way I'll be able to trust the numbers when I get out to the golf course. So I'm going to hit a couple more shots with each one, rerun those numbers. Just make sure that I wasn't swinging a little too soft with my lob wedge, because I don't want to just go bending unless I really need to. So I'm going to check those numbers one more time by hitting a few more shots, and I'm going to get those numbers to match. I'm going to have nice 12 to 14 yard gaps. I'm going to get them there, and that way it's going to make it a lot easier. So if you want to do a gap session with your wedges or with your irons and wedges, call one of our stores or email us. Come by and see us at Golf Plus in Panama City Beach or in Dothan, Alabama, and we'll get you fixed up. Remember, we do all sorts of fitting. We're on the Golf Digest Top 100 Fitters in America list and the Golf Magazine Top 50 in North America list. So we are trusted by some of the biggest names in golf, and you can trust us too. Come see us at Golf Plus. Thanks a lot, guys. That was terrible. Let's cut that one off the video.